You know, it was literally just over 6 months ago now that Meze launched the 105 Air to some pretty overwhelmingly positive remarks from both reviewers, gamers, and listeners alike. Well, Meze is stepping back up to the plate, guys, and they are launching the 105 Silva. And can they hit another home run with this new headphone in their lineup? Well, let's take a look. What's cracking, everyone? Today I get to talk to you guys about the Meze 105 Silva. Now this is an open back dynamic driver headphone. It retails in for $499 and puts itself right smack in between the 105 Air at $399 and the 109 Pro at $799. Okay, maybe not right in between, but you get what I'm saying. It's in between the two price points of these. Now, I do want to send a big thank you out to Meze, who did provide me with the 105 Silva simply in exchange for my thoughts and opinions. And that's always all that they asked me to do, which I highly appreciate. Now, guys, of course, during this video, I am going to be doing several comparisons between the 105 Silva to the Air to the Pro, but for most of the duration of this video, I do want to focus directly on the Silva. I mean, after all, this video is about the Silva, so these are going to kind of fade to black Metallica during this video. All right, let's cover the unbox really quick here, guys. Just tell you that you are going to get a zippered clamshell case that will hold the Silva in the box. You're also going to get a zippered pouch to hold the upgraded cable. Yes, I was excited to see this. It is a woven cable. It's a really nice cable. Dual 3.5 to the cups, terminates to 3.5 on the other end, so it is an unbalanced cable, but it will come with a 6.3 adapter, as well as a USB-C to 3.5 portable dongle DAC. So you don't need to have your own DAC or amp. You can just plug it in and you're ready to go. Then, of course, you're going to get a little tiny packet with some information on the 105 Silva, and that's it. All right, so let's quickly talk about the build and then a little bit on the driver used in the 105 Silva, and I'll do a little bit of comparing throughout to the 109 Pro and the 105 Air. All right, so on the Silva, let's start with the outside of the cups and just tell you this is walnut wood and ABS plastic. Now the ABS plastic is the same type that was used on the 105 Air, but my God, look how beautiful and exquisite that headphone looks. I dig the look. I dig the look of all three of these headphones, but each of them has their unique characteristic. Now, the 3.5 connection for your cables is going to be inside the cup just like it is on the 109 Pro. That's one difference from the 105 Air, because on the 105 Air, it's on the outside. It's down here. I'll show you that in a second, so that it's going to be easier for third-party cables, whereas this one, you got to be careful. If you got a barrel that's too big on the cable, it's not going to fit inside the cup. Now, there's no cup swivel or tilt really to speak of on any of these headphones, but that is because they are so easy to get a good fit and seal, thanks to this self-adjusting headband that we have. Now this headband here, this is PU leather, the same on the 105 Air. I believe on the 109 Pro, this is vegan leather, so that is one cost difference that you're gonna see there. And the accents are pretty similar on this headphone and the 105 Air versus the 109 Pro. Now the pads, these are velour pads. They're extremely soft and plush. And I love these pads. They are holding up really well because I've had the 109 Pro for a while. And, you know, no different there. And then you got the spring steel headband up top. Now there is slight ringing that you're going to get when you're wearing this on your head if you happen to bump this, just like these other two, but it's not nearly as bad as something like the 99 Classics. So I don't find that to be too awfully annoying and noticing it too much. All right, and then a quick comparison to the 105 Air. My God, look how beautiful that one is too. And there's that connection I talked about, how it's on the exterior of the cups there. This headphone is the lightest of the three, coming in at 336 grams. The 105 Silva is coming in at 354 grams. The 109 Pro comes in at 375 grams. But guys, honestly, I mean, I don't notice too much of a weight difference between the three of those. But let's look at the 109 Pro again here really quick. You'll notice the, upgraded accents that we see here. This is almost like a copper look. It's beautiful accent on that. A little bit more wood on the cups adds a little bit more to the weight, as does this here, and just beautiful headphones from Meze. All right, so quickly talking about the driver of the Silva, I can tell you that this is also a biocellulose composite dome on the driver, just like we see on both of the other two headphones. The one difference on the Silva is that on the Taurus, it is titanium coated. On the Taurus of the 109 Pro, it's beryllium coated. That will definitely make a difference of sound. And, I'll talk about that as I get into my sound impressions. And then from a technical standpoint of the driver, I can tell you that this one is 42 ohms of impedance and 112 dB of sensitivity, just like on the 105 Air and pretty dang close to the 109 Pro. The 109 Pro is 40 ohms of impedance and 112 dB of sensitivity. So yeah, I mean, really, really close with all three of these headphones from a drivability standpoint. One last thing I want to mention about all three of these headphones, and is something about Meze that I truly love as a company, is all parts are serviceable. So if you ever have something break down on you, you can always get it from Meze. They've also got, little informational things on their website showing how everything is pieced together. And I'll pop that up on the screen here and even show you on the 105 Silva, because I think it's pretty impressive. And again, it's just another thing that I love about Meze as an audio company. Hey, quick interruption here, guys, to remind you to like videos like this one if you do like them, and also please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. I also do have a Patreon. If you'd like to see some further ways that you can support the channel through that, I would highly appreciate that. Guys, let's get back to the video. All right, as far as the equipment that I use to power this headphone, I gotta tell you that yes, I use my Bioelectric V281 LE, of course. I use my HoloCyan 2 for the DAC. I use my Schiit Modius and Midgard. I use my Gunner for the gaming setup. I use my DC Elite and the Nunchaku for portable setups. But here's what I want to tell you guys. This is all you need. And it is not often that I say that about a headphone in this price range, but it truly is. And it was the same for the 105 Air for that part as well, that they have done a fantastic job for making a headphone that I don't feel needs a lot of different synergetic experiences. Yes, you can do some things with EQ if you'd like to, or maybe a warmer type amp or warmer type DAC if you want to go that route, or colder, but this is truly all you need to power this headphone and power it really well. By the way, this dongle DAC that they included, it is 32-bit and 384 kilohertz of sample rate, so it's no slouch for the technical mumbo jumbo that's inside of this. But gonna say it one more time because I think it's important. This is all you need. All right, so talking about the sound profile of the 105 Silva, I gotta tell you that what I hear from this headphone is that it does have probably the least emphasized sub-bass performance between this, the 105 Air, and the 109 Pro. It's not completely dropped off, so you are still going to get some sub-bass performance out of this, but it's more of a mid-bass performance that you're gonna notice a little bit of boominess every now and then, and definitely more fullness into that mid-bass. So you will still get some impact nature from it, and it won't make things like, hip hop and electronic music just completely unflattering. It's not gonna be quite at the level of a 105 Air or even the 109 Pro from that standpoint, but it still gets you the information. Now, as we move into the mid-range, guys, the mid-range is the meat and potatoes of this headphone, and it is fantastic in my opinion. But there is a but that I want to bring up, and that is going into the upper mid-range. I do find the elevation of probably that 2 to 3K region, maybe even like 3,500, somewhere in there region of this headphone, to be elevated more so than the 109 Pro and more so than the 105 Air. So be cautious there, because that can lend to some great things with the mid-range, but it can also provide some harshness every now and then, or some listening fatigue. And I will talk about that with some track examples here in a minute. And then as we get into that treble region, presence of vocalists and things is done very tastefully well on this, to where I wouldn't say they're right up in your face, but there's good presence of vocalists. So I do find that to be done very well. The difference that I find with this headphone over the 105 Air is that the 105 Air was a much smoother treble response, and that it was just really relaxed in treble, whereas this one still has some brilliance going on, but it's not bright like the 109 Pro can be. So that's where I'm saying it has truly placed itself in the middle. Meze has placed this one kind of in the middle to get you the best of both worlds from that standpoint. And that brilliance I bring up because it can provide some good technical performance and some good, openness and space there. And again, I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute with some track examples. All right, for track examples, guys, I simply want to talk about the differences you're going to hear between these three headphones, focusing mostly on the Silva. And the first one is going to be pretty easy to differentiate between the three, and that track is going to be Queen Mary by Francine 13. It's kind of funny because I was actually recently talking about this track with my buddy Tyler on a recent stream that we did, and I was like, yeah, I do remember loving that track so very much. And so I checked it out on the Silva, and what I noticed with that track, the very beginning has this really cool panning effect with synth instruments that are kind of popping off all around you, and it's really cool, and really all three of these for the imaging that it does. But there's an instant sub bass rumble that'll kick in, and there's really not much of a rumble on the Silva. It's definitely noticed with the 105 Air, and even the 105, and even the 109 Pro does pretty well with that as well. That is going to be the biggest difference I notice in that sub bass region. Now, throughout this track, I brought up this track because it is an electronic track, and other music from like Rez and things like that that has a lot of electronic music that I dig, it's faster. It's going to need more faster transients, and I definitely noticed the 109 Pro to be the king here for transient response. That is that beryllium coated driver that does a nice job of that to be a little bit faster than even the 105 Silva. The 105 Silva is titanium coated, so it's not keeping up quite as much as the 109 Pro. And then I would say in third place for something like that would be the 105 Air, even though I love just how much it hits with the boominess. Now, all three of these I do think have decent amount of attack to mid bass, so I don't think you'll go wrong there. It's just going to be if you want something a little bit more transient and things, the 109 Pro is going to beat it out from that standpoint. You're still going to get a little bit of boominess from the 105 Silva, so it's not lacking in that nature. It's just more so noticed with these two. All right, so next up, I want to talk about Black by Pearl Jam. Now, I love sampling this track for vocal performance from a male standpoint, and I got to tell you that all three of these, again, do sound really good on this track for their vocal performance. But the difference is, I would say here, the 105 Silva probably has the most presence as far as that goes without being just like pushed in my face, but I definitely get good presence. The 109 Pro has probably the most definition. So think of resolution and things. If you're really looking for that separation of vocalist to music, I think the 109 Pro does the best, talking about just the three of these headphones here. And then the 105 Air is more in it than it is separated. But again, all three of these do a nice job. Now, during this track, since we're talking about more of a rock and roll type track, when you hit drums and things, the 105 Air is probably going to have the best hit of drums. The 109 Pro's right there as well, whereas the 105 Silva is going to be the least flattering for that. But if you're talking about electric guitars and crunchiness and all of that, this is where it's at if you really are going for something like that. And then it's going to be second here, third here for something like that in that nature. Now, another vocal track that I like to sample is called Alienated by Zayn, and it's a very vocal focused track as it is. It's beautiful on this headphone. That brilliance that they give you on this just adds a little bit more breath to his voice and resonates better. More so in the fact because the 109 Pro will add a touch of sibilance every now and then with some vocal artists, and that's just not really something I personally want if I'm gonna have vocal presence. And then the 105 Air is gonna be more of that warmer touch when we're talking about something like that performance. So it's really gonna be, pick your poison type thing here, right? But I actually digged it the most on the 105 Silva. And then last up, I want to talk about a track called Zardas, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a live performance by Caroline Campbell. I'm bringing this one up because I've had this on my favorite tracks for a while, and I hadn't really listened to it in a while. And because I know this one does so well with string instruments, I wanted to sample it. It's a violin solo performance with the orchestra behind her. It's absolutely incredible on the Silva for the amount of just grip and hold. I played violin growing up, and they always say the instruments you play are the ones you're most familiar with what you're hearing. And what I heard was so dang accurate on the Silva, it just reminded me of those times that I did play. And the grip of the strings and the rosin on the bow, all that kind of stuff, I just felt that more in that performance, even more so than the 109 Pro, even though the 109 Pro is still really good for that. And the 105 Silva is just more blended in that nature and is more warmer tuned to where, like I said, this just has that extra peakiness for strings that sometimes it can be super flattering and enjoyable. And that would be a great example. It's definitely a track I would recommend testing out if you happen to have your hands on the 105 Silva. Now, also, along with that, since we're kind of going into the treble region, I suppose you could say, gaming. So I used the Meze boom mic and plugged it into my Gunner. Great setup. And I gamed with all three of these headphones again, and I gamed playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's what I've been into, and one of these days I'm gonna beat it. It's a game that has a good storyline, so there's a lot of dialogue in this. Very clear dialogue, really in all three of these. Probably a little bit more so on the Silva and the Pro versus the Air, but still really good. And then just the openness, because this is a wide open game, you know, when I'm out on a horse and galloping around, or, you know, when I'm having a big scene of fighting going on, I just hear more of the atmospheric effects around me with probably both of these headphones, but mostly with the 105 Silva. And the 105 Air is not bad either. It's just, you get some of that brilliance out of this that I'm talking about, which makes this fantastic for gaming. If you just don't need a lot of extra rumble down below, like you're maybe playing Battlefield series games or Call of Duty or something like that, to where you're not necessarily worried about your kill-death ratio, but you just want to be excited, yeah, then I'd probably go for the 105 Air just for that extra bit of boom that you're going to get. But this one's really good for gaming as well, guys. And that kind of wraps up my track examples / gaming recommendations as well. All right, and wrapping up my thoughts on the 105 Silva, I think it's more than appropriate to go ahead and bring back out the 109 Pro and the 105 Air, because I want to give you 3 ways that I feel like these headphones are alike, and 3 ways that I feel like they differentiate each other, especially with the Silva. So first thing that they are alike, drivability. I mean, they truly are, guys. All 3 of these can be driven off of that simple dongle DAC that's included in the box of the Silva, definitely. The only slight difference I would say is on the 109 Pro, because it is the beryllium coated driver. I have found at times that I can get some different synergetic experiences with this headphone, especially if I'm wanting something a little bit warmer to kind of tame that top end. That's the only situation where I would say maybe you want something a little different for this one. But overall, all 3 of these are super easy to drive the way that they are. And then the other way that they're the same, guys, is quite simply build and comfort. I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of these headphones for build and comfort, in my humble opinion. This one is a little bit heavier than the 105 Air, but not so much that I noticed a big difference. And it's just so comfortable putting these headphones on your hair, and on your hair. Well, I mean, they are on your hair, but on your head, and the self-adjustment of it just makes it fit like a glove almost every single time. And I love that about Meze, their attention to build, their attention to quality, no matter what price point. And then the last way I would say they're alike truly is kind of vocal presence when it comes to sound. I think all 3 of these do a nice job of vocal performance. Yes, there's going to be some slight deviations between all 3, but not so much so on the other parts that I'll talk about here in a second. And that I think if you truly like vocalists and things, you're going to be pretty pleased with all 3 of these. That's my opinion. Somebody else may disagree with that, and that is fine. Now, the 3 ways I find them different, and especially for the Silva, very easy to say, but bass response, right? I mean, this one does have the least amount of sub bass. The 105 Air is going to have the most boominess and probably a little bit more rumble to it than even the 109 Pro, but the 109 Pro is no slouch either, especially after listening to all 3 of these again. Yeah, this one still has a decent bass response, in my opinion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is going to be that 3K peak of the sound. That is something that is a warning, but also can be flattering depending on what you like to listen to. When I listen to orchestral arrangements, again, I'll say it, string instruments and things I think sound fantastic on this headphone most of the time. Sometimes it can get slightly fatiguing, so you got to be careful if that's a region that you find yourself sensitive to. I think that's important to know that that is probably tuned the most aggressive with the 105 Silva. And then the last thing that's going to differentiate itself, quite honestly, is going to be the top end. Because this one's a little bit bright for some people. For me, it's not quite as bad, but for others, yeah, definitely is a little bit bright. This one's very smooth and warm in the top end, and this is somewhere in the middle. And I think this is kind of the sweet spot that Meze has found And I really like that part of it because you get some spaciousness and some airiness from it, which is great for things like gaming and listening to live performances, but it's not so much that it's bright or peaky like it is on the 109 Pro. And then of course, if you just need it completely warm and maybe not quite as much brilliance there, then you got the 105 Air. So that's kind of the three ways that I see them being different. Now, does this fit my preferences? Most of the time, yes. I would say if I'm listening to hip hop or to electronic type music, I'm going with one of these two for that type of scenario. But for gaming, it's truly between these two here, the 105 Air and the 105 Silva. And actually listening to the Silva was pretty impressive for gaming. Now, if I'm wanting just to hear explosions and just really get into that and not care so much about, competitiveness or things like that, yeah, I'm probably gonna go for the 105 Air. And of course, listening to my favorite music, sometimes favorite music, depending what mood I'm in. My blues music, loved it for that. String arrangements, loved it for that. So there's definitely some things that I think Meze's done really well with the Silva, and they've done a nice job of giving us options now. They're kind of going by the route of, I would say, like a Sennheiser and giving you different things in their lineup. That's really cool to see. I'm really curious to see where Meze goes from here. I would love to see something higher than the 109 Pro in that $1,000 category range to see what they can do with a dynamic driver, something like that. I mean, only Meze knows what they're going to do next as far as that goes, but that's not to say I'm unhappy with how they have done things here, because I personally think they've done really well with it. So those are my thoughts, guys, on the 105 Silva. I would like to thank all of you for watching this video, and I can't see you in the next one. I can't do that. Not this way.